Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Lexington, Kentucky. And so let's switch gears to just another disappointing effort, and it's not the win-loss effort, right? It's a situation at Kentucky where the same things that have popped up for the last 10, 12 years popped up on Saturday. Kentucky loses to Ole Miss 30-23. Yeah, the last second field goal pushed it over, plus the cover. Lane Kiffin even apologized for that after. But this was about Mark Stoops not knowing how to manage the clock, not knowing how to manage pretty much anything in game. This has been a frustrating part for Kentucky fans. And producer Matt, you can monitor for comments from Kentucky fans because there's a few of them. But this is who Mark Stoops has been. This is especially frustrating. This was a winnable game. You left points on the field. Let's go ahead and discuss. And I think big picture with this one, because I think there's going to be non-Kentucky fans coming into this one saying, you are a 10-point underdog against Ole Miss. How can you complain? Well, first of all, 10-point underdog, but let's remember the context here. First of all, I give Kentucky fans a ton of credit because especially early in the year, they come to these games, they show out, they buy tickets, they support their team. They want to believe that things are going to be different, right? And by the way, Mark Stoops, the media who covers him, they have done a good job of convincing us this thing was going to be different. We all saw the motivated Mark Stoops meme over the course of the last couple months. We all saw that. We all saw Kentucky media convincing us that it's different and he's motivated and he's reprioritized his whatever in the transfer portal and blah, 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 and this and that. And so you have that. You have a little bit of positive energy around the program. And then again, the fan showed out. You're facing a team that you beat last year, which there was only one in the SEC. And so I could see the situation where Kentucky fans are talking themselves into, like, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can get this win. Maybe we can build some momentum. Nobody expects us to go 10-2 against this schedule, but can we build some momentum going into the tough part of the schedule? Instead, you lose a game that you easily could have won, and you lose it because of dumb procedural stuff. No different than what Mark Stoops, that's kind of been his calling card, unfortunately, over the course of his time at Kentucky. Really quickly, you don't need me to tell you, but before the half, it was just, frankly, it was maybe the worst 2-minute drill that I've ever seen. Matt, you can pop up the tweet if you want, because I put up a tweet. I said, this quite literally the worst 2-minute drill that I've ever seen in the history of football. It's not even debatable. We'll be telling our grandkids about this 100 or 50 years from now, okay? So for people who weren't watching the game closely, Ole Miss is up 17-13. Kentucky has the ball under a minute to go. First of all, fact that it's 17-13, you're in great position. But here's the crazy part. This is Kentucky now. You're in position to score, down 17-13 going into the half. You get to the Ole Miss 40-yard line with about 13 seconds left. Now, look, it's a long field goal, but it is a field goal attempt. You have 13 seconds left. By the way, you have timeouts. So you have an opportunity, in theory, to maybe quickly being the operative word, run one play. Or more, what I probably would have done, run the ball up the middle, line up the field goal kicker wherever he wants to kick from, and then boot a long field goal, okay? Instead, what happens? You're at the Ole Miss 40. You try to run one more play and get cute. Guess what happens? Disjointed play from the beginning, 5-yard penalty, procedural stuff. Then you're already scrambling, 5-yard penalty. Guess what happens next? You run a play, you get the play off. Unfortunately, it's a 10-yard penalty for holding. All of a sudden, you're completely out of field goal range. You take off any opportunity to score 3 points. And this was the worst part. And I know this, I saw Kentucky fans reacting to this. Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy were openly mocking the coaching on the broadcast. They basically were like, what was that? Sean McDonough, I think, was trying to be diplomatic, basically said like, yeah, procedural stuff has sort of been an issue in Mark Stoops' time at Kentucky. And I'm not blaming Sean McDonough. He was 100% right. So there's no guarantee you get 3 points, but you put yourself in an opportunity where you can't even attempt to get 3 points when you were in field goal range with 13 seconds to go. Then in the second half, You're down 27-20 early in the fourth quarter, okay? And again, you're trailing, but you're in the game. By the way, you would have loved those 3 points before halftime, right? Well, with about 8 minutes to go, you are definitely in field goal range. With 7:50 left, Ole Miss hasn't moved the ball incredibly well. You're definitely in field goal range, as I said, 37 yards. It would have been a 37-yard field goal, okay? This is, again, you're down 27-23 with 7:50 left. I believe you had all your timeouts at that point. 27-23, 7:50 left. Or 27-20, excuse me, with 7:50 left. 7:50 is a lot of time when you have timeouts in a game like that at home. And Ole Miss hasn't been moving the ball like crazy, okay? You decide not to kick the field goal and go for it. 37-yarder, when your field goal kicker can absolutely make kicks from that distance, you instead decide to go for it. Just brain dead behavior. Why? Because even if you get the first down, guess what? You still don't have points on the board. You still have to get a touchdown, and you leave yourself no margin for error, and all you're doing is taking more time off the clock. So it was idiotic. I saw one of the Kentucky media members, I don't know who it was off the top of my head, but basically insinuate like Mark Stoops goes for it so he can then say that he went for it and he can't accuse him of being conservative. But you take 3 points off the board there for sure. You could have had 3 points before the half. And then, oh, by the way, you get the ball back the next possession. You go 3 and out with Ole Miss. You get the ball back. You're in field goal range again. But now you definitely have to go for it because there's only 2 or 3 minutes left. And then, oh, by the way, you know what the worst part was as somebody who had the under? Then Ole Miss kicks the field goal to go up whatever it was, 30-20. You hit the big play. Mark Stoops doesn't even realize that he needs to kick the field goal right there to go down 7 and kick the onside. Then Lane Kiffin calls the timeout, whatever. I'm getting too in the weeds. But the point I'm trying to make is that even late in the game, when I'm like, oh no, Mark Stoops is going to kick the field goal here, it's going to go over, I'm going to lose my bet, I'm sitting there saying he didn't even realize it. And then Ole Miss calls a timeout, and you see Mark Stoops on the broadcast like, oh yeah, I should probably kick the field goal, huh? And then the onside kick. Onside kick's no good. Ole Miss wins. Credit Ole Miss on the road, whatever. The story's not Ole Miss. The story is this is the same exact Mark Stoops that we've seen over the years. Now, listen, we always have to do the Mark Stoops caveat, right? We have to credit him for the levels that he brought Kentucky to in a previous era, right? But we also have to acknowledge previous era, Vandy was way worse than they are now. Florida was hitting all-time lows, although they may have hit an all-time low on Saturday. South Carolina was down. Well, now all of those programs are up, and I'll be real, it just feels like it's run its course, right? Because it's almost what we just said with Billy Napier. It's not just that you lose. It's the manner in which you lose. In year 12 or 13, you don't know how to manage the clock. You don't know. I mean, just think about who was watching Friday night, the Los Angeles Chargers, Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City in 10 seconds ran their offense off the field, the special teams on the field, and kicked like a 58-yard field goal, okay? I'm not saying you have to have that with college kids, but that was clearly well coached. That was clearly preparation. That was clearly something that Andy Reid had thought about and, kind of distilled it to his team, I mean. And Mark Stoops is the exact opposite. What did Mark Stoops do? Instead of having his team ready to go, making the worst decisions at the worst time, and that's kind of who he's been. Listen, he got a lot of wins throughout his time at Kentucky. We have to give him credit for that. The counter to that is that if we're being fair and we're being honest, there's also been a lot of winnable games where he just makes weird decisions. Go back to Georgia last year. I don't remember all the details. I do remember him punting inside the 50-yard line when basically if Georgia got the ball back and got a first down, the game was over. Whatever. But this is who he is. This is who he's been. He's always had to win on the margins. And when you have to win on the margins and you're not good in situational football, it's never going to work out well. And so it feels like it's run its course. I still go back to what I said from the beginning. I understand what the buyout is. I understand that if Mark Stoops wants to be the coach next year or just doesn't want to give up money, there's really not much Kentucky can do. We talked about the Stoops buyout compared to the DeBoer buyout last week, and Stoops is one of those guys. I think he's owed every dollar, $35, $40 million within 60 days of being fired. So shout out his agent. But I still go back to what I said from the beginning is if this is another 4-8 type year, if this is another 3-9 type year, is he coming back again? I don't see it. I think he's kind of at a loss for words. I think he used this offseason to claim that last year was a one-off deal. And I think if next year it's going to be much the same, you're going to come back with an even tougher schedule, 9 SEC games. You're going to come back to a place that doesn't want you. And by the way, I'm not blaming you, Kentucky fans. I think you have every right to be frustrated. Now, who do you get? Can you get John Summerall, the former Kentucky assistant coach? Blah, blah, blah. We'll find out. But I don't think it's unfair for Kentucky fans to expect more. I don't think it's unfair for Kentucky fans to expect that your coach knows how to use timeouts and knows how to run 2-minute offense and 2-minute defense and know when to kick the field goal and know when to not kick the field goal. It was so disappointing because the game was there for a win. I know if you're not a Kentucky fan, you're saying, Torres, it's Kentucky. They're Ole Miss. What are you freaking out about? That game was there for the win. That game was certainly, you were in position if you just did the fundamentals. Kentucky does the exact opposite. It's so disappointing. Producer Matt, we can do one or two Kentucky. We have so much more that I still want to get to, but one or two Kentucky comments, and you can kind of, we'll go to a break after that. Okay. Luke, this is a great comment because I agree with this. Luke says, UK football fans give more to their program for less in return than any fan base. They get gaslighted into giving money for the same garbage year after year from Stoops and his staff. Listen, the money thing, I've been critical of Stoops with that. What was the quote? Pony up. Remember last year? I think it was last year they lost to Georgia, or 2 years ago they lost to Georgia. He goes, you want to be better, pony up. And then he goes in the summertime, he does that weird interview where it's like, where he basically is like, yeah, my job, I don't get to coach anymore. I have to focus on raising NIL money. It's like, dude, that's part of the job. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you don't want to do it, by the way, guess what? You can now give back money. Brent Venables gave back money. Mike Norvell gave back money. Brian Kelly gave back money. If money is the issue, you can give it back, buddy. No excuses. Play like a champion. And then I think to Luke's first point, UK fans give more for their program for the same return, for less return than any fan base. I don't disagree with that because here's the thing. One, they get gaslighted every offseason. Not your fault. You want to believe your team's going to be good, right? I'm not blaming you. But two, it's the part about showing like coming off of a 4-8 season last year, it would have been so easy for there to be 22,000 people in that stadium yesterday and 12,000 of them wearing Ole Miss red. It wasn't that. I was watching there. Best I could tell, there was no empty seats in the house. Maybe there were. By the way, if you ever need tickets, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. But I bring it up because Kentucky fans showed up. They were loud. They wanted something to believe in. Coaching staff let them down. There's one more really good comment, Matt. We'll get to it, and then we'll go. Luke, again, great comment again. It's time to have a conversation about Mitch Barnhart's future after getting bullied into this ridiculous one-sided contract to Callan Stoops. UK would have to pay Stoops $40 million within 60 days. So I'm right on the buyout, $40 million within 60 days. Mitch Barnhart's on his last legs. For people who don't know, he's like not only the longest tenured AD in the SEC, he's one of the longest tenured ADs nationally. Think about how quick AD jobs turn over. He was at Kentucky when they hired Calipari in 2009. It's 2025 right now. But yeah, this is a terrible contract. And I think at points Mark Stoops had leverage, but there's any good contract protects both sides. And you want to take care of your guy, but you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're backed into a corner. That's what I think Kentucky is right now. But I still go back to, you go 4-8 and you're getting booed every time you're walking off the field. If you're Mark Stoops, you're going to come back to do it all again next year. I don't believe it. Is there a mutual agreement? Is there a number in the middle? I don't know. It's bad.